Hi, welcome to another episode of Look Ma No Hands. My name is Linda. In today's episode, I will be talking about what I'm wearing, what I'm stitching, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, and I will end things off with the segment that I call Fancy Footwork. In this week's Fancy Footwork, there's a big rant about what I have to do, so stay tuned. What I'm wearing today is a bandana that can also double as like a little neckerchief scarf. It's kind of my own design. I started out by making the ribbed band, and then I made a separate piece of a granny square triangle, like a half square. And then I used a slip stitch to seam them together. And I also have on matching leg warmers, again, my own design. Started out doing the ribbing section and then continued on with granny stitch in the round for the length of my calf, and then finished off with more of the ribbing at the bottom. Ended up making it a little bit not enough negative ease, so I added a little bit of like a drawstring in there to make it so that it would stay up. If I do this again, and I probably will, make the band maybe an inch or two shorter in circumference, so that it fits more snug. But yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. Decided to go with some different accessories as opposed to my typical poncho. The shirt I'm wearing is just a plain old black sweatshirt, nothing fancy, just kind of chilling out, relaxing this weekend. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. For this week, what I've been stitching, I have been working diligently on the short beach picnic blanket that I've been working on since the beginning of January. This week I decided to just focus and work on the one project to hopefully get it finished soon. I did manage to finish up the skein of yarn I was working on, and used up like a remnant from a previous project, the same color as I was using for the blanket, and broke into what I believe is a third skein of yarn for this project. It's coming along. I will definitely be finishing it very soon. I can see though that it's just taking a long time. So yeah, I'm gonna try again this week to do the split screen like I did last week. So if it looks like I'm not looking at the camera, that's because I am looking at my work as I'm going along. I know I got a little bit of feedback saying that the split screen was kind of a cool way to display things, so I will try and do that again. And this week I'm doing a better job of remembering to turn on both cameras at the same time. So there's that. The weather this week has been quite pleasant for the end of February. A couple of sunny days, some slightly warmer temperatures, which has allowed me to get out and go walking, which is something that I very much enjoy, getting out, listening to the birds singing. I'm a very nature forward person. I like being out in the sunshine and enjoying being out in nature. I particularly love hearing the birds. It's just a reminder that spring is almost here. Last summer, there were some birds of prey. I would venture to say they're hawks that live in the park nearby, and I really enjoy watching them. We have crows out there in the park that are very territorial, and the crows and the hawks get into fights quite a bit. And I would venture to say that the crows are definitely the aggressors and way more mean than the hawks. It's very interesting to watch the behavior and the interaction between those two varieties of birds. I've seen the crows swooping down on some of the geese that frequent the park. I've seen the crow swoop down on one of the stray cats. The crows really just kind of amaze me at how aggressive they are. They seem pretty intense. The last stitch of the row is always difficult. Now for the big flip. I was just wondering the other day on my walk if I'm going to see the fox again this year. Last year, a couple of times when I was out walking in the morning, I would cross paths with a fox. I don't really live in a wooded area, so it's always kind of exciting when I see wildlife like that. One morning last year, we had to get up early for an appointment, and as we were leaving the house, I saw a coyote in the street. So I did a quick U-turn and went back in the house because I was not trying to startle the coyote. by coming out unexpectedly. Several years ago, we had a problem with skunks in our neighborhood. I could watch them as they waddled across the street. They look cute, but boy, do they stink. At that time, we still had our little dog, and one day I let her out to the yard. And I'm out there with her, and I see the skunk off in the distance in the backyard. And my silly little dog made her way up to the skunk and was nose to nose with the skunk. I just about lost my mind because I thought for sure she was going to get sprayed. But the skunk must not have seen her as a threat because they stood there with one another face to face. And then eventually parted ways. I was grateful that she didn't get skunked, but in that moment, I was freaking out. My little dog did not like to be bathed. She would not have appreciated having to be scrubbed down after getting what I call skunked. So yeah, that was interesting. I don't currently have any pets. A couple of years ago, my son Conyer passed away, and we never acquired another pet after that. I had that bird for probably close to 20 years. So that was a little bit devastating. Pretty much my entire adult life at that point I had spent with that little bird, so I still miss it sometimes, but as we know, pets don't live forever. I like having something to take care of, so instead of getting a new pet, I have become a plant mom. I have about a half a dozen houseplants in my studio here. I call my craft room my studio. My little art studio. I crochet and paint here, draw, do all kinds of arts and crafts activities. The yarn split. My plants are plants that my mom gave me when I told her I wanted to become a plant mom. A couple of them were plants that she had decided she didn't really have room for, so they had been sitting out on their back porch, and she told me that I could have those. And then she has African violets that she says are the ones that I had given her when I was in preschool for Mother's Day one year. So that's kind of exciting. She says they grow a lot, so she's split them many times over the last 40 plus years. And I think that's so cool. So that tells you that's a very robust plant, because if it can last that long across multiple moves from different apartments and houses, surviving all the ups and downs of life, I'm sure many times forgetting to water them. I know my brothers used to play in the dirt of a lot of the house plants, so I'm sure there were times that the plants were stressed for some reason or another. But through careful treatment from my mom and my dad, the plants continued to thrive. And so far, under my care, the two that I have are growing quite well. I was a little bit nervous because in the past, when I've had plants, I have not done well. They don't survive. But I've had these plants now since August, so I guess I'm doing okay. Just a few more stitches here. Okay, well, that's what I'm working on this week. Trying to get this blanket finished. It's coming along, but it's slow go. So it is what it is. I will keep working at it, and as soon as it's finished, I will definitely have some pictures of it and be ready to show it off. All right. So this week I've been reading a couple of books. The first book that I finished this week was the one that I had started last week, called Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty. The premise of that book is that there's a delayed flight on which a woman starts telling other passengers the age and manner of which they will die. Initially, people believe she is clairvoyant or a psychic, whatever you want to call. But as the story carries on, you kind of learn the circumstances behind which things unfold, and you find out that she, in fact, is not a psychic. She's suffering from kind of like post-traumatic stress and things like that that kind of bring her to that situation on the plane. The thought-provoking moment in the premise of the book is, if someone were to tell you the age and manner in which you would die, how would you behave from that point forward? Like, would you change the things you do to try and prevent an early death? Would you work hard towards living that full life of, old age, if someone told you that you weren't going to die until you were 100? If someone told you that you weren't going to die until you were quite old and you're very young when they tell you this, do you think you would be more reckless? With the thought of, I can do whatever, I'm not going to die until I'm 100 years old, so it's all good. I don't know. It's a very deep question to think about. I tend to believe that we all face our own mortality, like we know nobody gets out alive kind of thing. So I like to try to live my life to the fullest, no matter what, whether I think I'm going to die tomorrow or live until I'm 100. I live each day, day by day, and just do the best I can to enjoy myself and spread kindness and things like that. So yeah, I don't think knowing the specifics of my age and manner of death would really change anything that I do. But yeah, it was an interesting story and very thought-provoking. The other book that I read this week, another kind of dark story, in my opinion. It was a story that was about sudden death and how the people in the family and friend circle for the main character who died, how they kind of coped with the sudden loss of their loved one. The name of the book is After Annie by Anna Quindlen. The main character, Annie, was a 37-year-old mother of 4 children. And so just thinking about how the sudden loss of her affected her children, affected her husband and other family members and her best friend. Again, very thought-provoking book, and kind of makes you think about, like, how would you live your life after the loss of someone so close? Getting a little bit of like insight onto how the children coped with that loss, people that came into the story to kind of help the characters process their grief, very frank discussions about grief and how sometimes grief can just kind of sneak up on you, like you think you're over it and there really is no ever really getting over losing someone like that. So I think it was a very good stepping stone, a good way to like open the discussion about grief and how people kind of live through grief. I would never say like cope with it or get over their grief, because grieving is like a lifelong process. And that was something that was very like evident in this book. I think mental health is such an important part of our health overall, and this fictionalized version of something that we all at some point in our lives go through would be a really good way to kind of open that discussion. I think this would be a really great like book discussion type of book. It would definitely be something to kind of like talk through and just open up the door for people to share their experiences in grief. And yeah, it was a sad book, but also a book that could offer a lot of hope for people who might be struggling with grief, or people who are thinking about like what would happen in their lives if the inevitable happened. So yeah, kind of more deep books this week. Like I said, definitely taking a step back from the romance, because that was just getting a little too much for me. I wasn't really enjoying that. These more thought-provoking books are kind of more my speed right now. I have a couple of juvenile fiction books in my queue, so I'll be reading those. Those will probably be a lot more lighthearted and kind of a palate cleanser between some of these more heavy and deep books. But yeah, that's what I've been reading, and like I said, a little bit more dark and heavy reading this week, but I've definitely been enjoying it. Like I said, just the writing style in both books was interesting and pretty easy to get through. So it's nice that the style was a little bit easier to get through, considering the depth of the story and the weight of the story was much bigger. So yeah, let me know what you're reading this week, and maybe I'll check out some of the things that you're into. This week I've been watching much of the same as the previous weeks. Plenty of Golden Girls. Will Trent. Love that show. It's just definitely some of the new characters that have come in are interesting this week. Scott Foley was brought in as one of the actors portraying a new character, so I enjoy that. He's definitely an actor that I've been watching since my college days when he was on Felicity, so it's good to see him in this new role, and I look forward to seeing like how his character kind of evolves and his relationship with Angie, if that'll go anywhere. So yeah, that was fun. What else this week? Shifting gears, the storyline there is evolving, and that's always a fun watch. The other thing that I watched this week that was kind of like a news special was the show called Will Reeve Finding My Father. The son to Christopher Reeve is a news anchor on ABC News, and being such a young person when his father passed, he has a desire to kind of learn more about his father. As Will himself is aging and getting older, he wants to find like a connection to his past, a connection to his father. So he spoke of the documentary that Christopher Reeve had been working on shortly before his horseback riding accident that eventually led to his death. All of this happened when Will was quite young, and he really only has memory of his father after the injury because he was a toddler when that happened. So he wanted to go back and kind of explore that final project that his father did, and he documented all of his experience with that, and it was just really interesting and a great watch. It was just interesting to see like how similar his experience was with his father's work, kind of following the same path that his dad took with exploring the gray whales, I think it was, and learning like about their migration pattern and exploring the communities that kind of get to experience those creatures on a daily basis. So he really had like a great appreciation for the two different communities that depend on those whales, and the people there recognized him and spoke very fondly of their interactions with Christopher Reeve. So I think it was like a really great full circle experience for Will. One thing I can say is, as I was watching the show, I felt a little bit sad, not so much for Will, because it seemed like he really got some closure and got like that feeling of connection, but I think of like a lot of people that have experienced loss at a young age like Will did, not being able to have that opportunity to reconnect with their parent or with their loved one. So in that, you could really tell that he felt very fortunate to be able to have that opportunity. It would be interesting to see if he would be able to find a way to help other people do the same. Like, it just seems like he has that kind of spirit and the heart to be able to do that, and like he has a platform that he could take that opportunity and really run with it. So yeah, that would be kind of an interesting thing to see if he pursues something in that avenue. But it could just also be something that people can be inspired. Maybe you can't do it on quite the same scale that he did. I'm sure that was quite costly to be able to do such a thing like that, but even if you can find something small within your own community that can help you reconnect with your loved ones, it might be something that like a lot of people could take inspiration from and try and do something similar but on a smaller scale. So like I said, it was an interesting watch. It was kind of awe-inspiring, just even to think about like the enormity of the animals that he was interacting with. And I'm very like interested in marine life and things like that. So when I was watching it, I was just thinking to myself, like, that would just be such a fun thing to do. But yeah, just seeing those animals through the lens was probably about as close as I'll ever get to doing something like that. But it was a good watch. If you have an opportunity, it is on Hulu. So if you have a Hulu subscription, you can definitely go and check that out. It was a good story, a good hour-long show. Will Reeve finding my father. All right. Okay. This week for fancy footwork, I'm going to be repairing, I guess you could call it like a chest of drawers. It's just a small box that has it's like a wooden box with 3 small drawers to use for some of my art supplies. It was part of a set. It was the 3 little drawers and then a stand or a rack to store paintbrushes. And a big part of the advertising for the rack anyway was that there was no assembly required, which for me that's fantastic, because there's nothing that I really find more tedious than having to assemble pieces of furniture. A lot of the furniture that I have in my little art studio is stuff that needed a lot of assembly, like every dowel rod, every cam, every screw, nut, bolt, nail required assembly. So it's tedious, but I do it. The paintbrush rack came all assembled already, and the thing about the little box with the drawers didn't necessarily say there was no assembly, but from the image it didn't look like there was anything that needed to be assembled. As I was opening the box, I heard like a little bit of a rattling sound, so I thought maybe it was just like some of the packaging or whatever. And at first glance, it didn't look like there was anything necessary to be assembled, but as I started unpacking it and looking more carefully at it, there is a flaw in production. The 2 smaller drawers are kind of held in by little wooden rails, and on one side of the box, the little wooden rails came apart. And so the drawers on one side, when you pull the bottom drawer out, the other 2 drawers just drop because there's nothing there to hold them up. There are a few things about the box that are really kind of cool. When you close them, there's a small magnet that kind of holds the drawers closed. So if you were to like pick it up and take it with you to go do like some outdoor painting or whatever, you don't have to worry that they're just gonna like pop open, which is nice. But the fact that the little rails that hold the drawers in either weren't assembled correctly, or maybe the glue that held them together wasn't strong enough, I don't know. But I did reach out to the company to find out like if there was some kind of like replacement or what they wanted to do about it. Didn't really get much of a response back. So after like, now this is going on like the 3rd month since I've purchased this item, have not been able to use it because the drawers don't work properly. I'm not gonna like load it up with stuff and not be able to open and close the drawers. So it's been just like a useless piece of junk in my art studio. And that's where the rant comes in. It's like, I contacted the company, they said they would look into it and get back to me, and they never have. They're sending me advertisements about coupons and sales that are going on for me to buy more stuff from them, but they haven't taken care of the stuff that I've already purchased. So I'm definitely not in any rush to buy more things from them. What I am going to do today, though, is my own minor repair on the piece so that it will once again be useful. Or maybe not even once again, so that it will finally be useful. Like I said, the company never reached back out to me with offer of a replacement or a suggestion as to how to fix it. It's really not complicated. I can fix it myself. All I need to do is a little bit of wood glue, pop those rails in, and it's good to go. But it would have been nice for the company to kind of have better customer service when it comes to taking care of an issue that was most definitely something that they could have done better with. So there's that. All right, I'm gonna pause the video here, switch camera angles, and get to work. Okay, so I've purchased some wood glue, and I've got myself cotton swabs and paper towel for any mess that I might make. But this here is the box that has the wood drawers. There's 3 drawers, and each drawer is on a rail, a wood rail, on either side. And when I opened the first drawer, one of the rails that should be in here was not. So that was the first piece. Then there was a second drawer that I opened. And inside was the second rail that should have been in place. And without those 2 rails in place, when you remove the third drawer from within, the other 2 drawers fall down. So I'm going to remedy the situation, adding a little bit of wood glue onto the rails and putting them back in place. Apparently, it takes a good deal of squeezing to get this glue to come out. Hopefully I can do this. Oh, there we go. Whew. Let's just say it's a good thing I put out the towel, because I'm making a god-awful mess all over the place. I'm gonna use this to get the excess glue off of here, because I don't want to go too crazy with the glue. There was a lot right here. So one rail is back in place. Now I'll do the same thing for the second one. Okay, that went a little bit better. The first one, the glue kind of got away from me. Alright, that's taken care of. No thanks to the manufacturer. It wasn't even that difficult. And now for the hard part, which is waiting for the glue to dry. It says that it will take 24 hours for it to fully set. So I'm gonna leave it for the 24 hours that it will take to fully set. And hopefully it will be good to go. All right, thanks. Thanks for coming along for another episode of Look Ma No Hands. I really appreciate all the support. Be sure to click subscribe. Make sure you hit the notifications and select all so that you don't miss any episodes or any maybe special features that I might be doing. I do have some things kind of planned in the works for future special editions, so keep an eye out for those. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you're up to. How's your weather in your neck of the woods? What's been making you happy? Anything you want to share? Your favorite color? Whatever you feel like divulging and sharing with me. And I hope to see you back again for another episode. Thanks again.